Settle down.
Good evening. If you are joining us here, it is Monday night. We are at Cornerstone Church, and this is Texas Cares. And if it's your first time here joining us, either online or in person, CARES program is caregivers and relatives empowered for support for those with substance misuse. Our program is aimed at helping those family members and those who are around those struggling with addiction of all sorts, alcohol and substance abuse. And this is a space where we aim for three things: to build community, to provide education, and to give space for support. And our Monday nights are where we welcome expert speakers with lived experience, people who will be out there sharing about their life stories. Sometimes they are those who have gone through the struggle of addiction. Sometimes it's the family member. And our goal is to be able to provide a space and a platform for those who are tuning in to be able to hear their story and to say, these are words that connect with me. This is my story. This is my community. So if you're here right now, you're in the right spot, and I am honored to be joined by our guest speaker today, C.L. Turner, who, if you noticed as we got started, there was laughter before we even said a single word. So just know that you are set for a really good night to hear about a gentleman who has done a lot in his life, an incredible creative soul. So let me give just a couple of brief words, and I'll hand over the microphone. But C.L. Turner is a very successful business investor who has done incredible in his life. And the left part of his brain that is incredibly successful with numbers, investing, and finding great opportunities is matched by the creative talent on the right side of his brain, where he is a songwriter and also someone who has composed, a musician. He is part of a group, Arctic Wave, which features musicians who have toured many spots along with Grammy-winning awards. So that is just the tip of the iceberg of the amount of talent that's here. And with all of that, also a very true story of where addiction has taken and the hope and success that's on the other end. So with that, I hand over the microphone to my dear friend, CL.
Thank you. It's interesting you say just the tip of the iceberg because the name of the band is Arctic Wave. So I guess that's fitting. I have an interesting story, perhaps a little different than most. Mine was my journey through addiction and recovery was not gradual, it was immediate. If I have a distinct memory of being a 17-year-old college freshman. I'd never drank before, had a couple of drinks in August of my freshman year. As I say, I dated alcohol for a few weeks, that was all. And I got married the next month and didn't divorce until alcohol until 25 plus years later. And I left mayhem in my trail, unresolved relationships with both long deceased parents, a broken marriage, and as a practical matter, some extreme physical danger. These are things actually I've never shared before, but I'll just mention two, but I appreciate your hint. There is sunshine on the other side. I drank alcohol to extreme excess every day for over 25 years. Two incidents stick out particularly. One time in St. Louis, I had an early flight out, and I wanted to drink the night before. So my idea was I could drink more if I got a I got a hotel that was right next to the airport, which was not in a great area. To my surprise, the hotel didn't have alcohol, didn't sell it, didn't serve it. So I thought it would be a fine idea if I walked from my bad area to a worse area to get some alcohol to satisfy my craving. I made it back by the grace of God. There was an even worse instance in Port of Spain, Trinidad, where I was briefly a musician. And I woke up groggily one night about 3 or 4 miles from the main area in Port of Spain, Trinidad, and I was in a house. And I saw a guy with, as I awakened, it was a guy with very long dreads. That wasn't a problem, but his longer gun was a problem, as were the drugs on the table. And I remember, or half remember, saying, I need to leave. And I walked back to the hotel where I slept, somehow lost the shoe in the process, but flirting with danger, that was not enough to change my behavior. It took until I was in my mid-40s when life tackled me very hard. I'm not special, but I did get an extra condensed version of life within 6 months, events that impact all of us. My mom died. I got divorced and had a very bitter, difficult custody fight. I lost a job, and importantly, 2 of my 4 best friends, who I'd met in church in Dallas when I was 10, they were twins and they committed suicide. And there were 2 real catalysts to my sobriety. One was when I saw the funeral, both funerals of the twins who had committed suicide. I saw the looks in their parents' eyes, and one of them was a parent himself, and I saw the bewilderment in his son's eyes. He had 2. R.I.P. Robert and Rodney Cooper. That was followed shortly thereafter by a visit to a grocery store, and like many things, I remember it best from lyrics in a song. Shopping with my girl in a grocery store, she saw the beer and asked if I needed more. Question from a 4-year-old shook me to my core. Just want to live my life sober every day, because when there's a will, Jaws got away. And that's true. It's been 15 years since I had a drink, learned how to love, learned how to think. It seems so easy now, but I was on the brink. Can't change your past, but you can change your ways. Ain't no way to live in a permanent haze, clean and sober for the rest of my days. That's my story, and it was the friends, and most especially my daughter, that jolted me to sobriety.
You know, Seal, when we first started talking, one thing that impressed me so much is the life that you lived and the danger and how addiction takes us to different spaces where we have family members that say, well, if you loved me enough, you would give up the drink or the drug. Why don't you care about me enough? What is it that family members need to understand or know about the experience?
Well, it takes 2, meaning family members, like many other areas of life. We can't control what others do, but if you want the best probability for a good outcome, you continue to figuratively and literally hug the addict, love the addict, in as much as possible in an uncritiquing way, and do it consistently. I understand you can't accept physical endangerment. That's a line that can't be crossed, and it can be tiring, and you may need to tag team with other family members. But all of us have, I had as an addict, veneers of different width, but those veneers get punctured, and they get punctured by love, and they get punctured by love from people who the addict loves.
You talked about a 4-year-old in your life that plays a very special role in you
21
achieving.
now.
Sobriety. 21 now.
It's 21 now. So I've been sober 17 years.
So when we look at your daughter and her message, what do you suppose, and again, can't speak for, her, but to the best that you have heard over the years, what is it that daughters want to say to their parents, or a father that's still struggling, or a mother that might be still in addiction?
Well, I think what she would, or those in her situation would say to the parents is, I love you and I need you. And appeal in that fashion. On the other side, I know within my daughter's sphere of friends, her top 6 or 8 friends, addiction is prevalent in at least half of those families. And she has said, your parents can change, my dad did. There's still hope.
You have really taken music as an incredible space to be able to share a word of your experience and a message of hope. So tell us a little bit about your journey in that space and the kind of impact that you have seen through your music.
Well, it's unexpected, to be sure. If you had told me in my mid-20s, when I was in the Caribbean, that I'd be writing songs and recording albums with world-class musicians and getting some attention, I would have said, of course. If you told me it won't happen until you're 60, I might have had a different reaction then. But everybody turns to, we all have our own creative outlets, whether it's writing or gardening. For me, it's always been music, and it's something I put aside for 30 years largely, and embracing it now. And sometimes, unlike our meeting here, if I think that I want to rephrase something from a prior question, can't do that, or maybe we can go back and edit later. But in songwriting, especially with today's technology, you get the opportunity to fine-tune any and everything you want to say, and words that are composed both with syncopation and with music around them, touch the heart in a way that mere words can't, independent of those. And I wouldn't say it's something I overtly try to do. It's a big part of me. And interestingly, that's probably the way my message of hope and for me, sobriety is intertwined with faith. That's the way that I communicate that message to others, and where it seems to be well received.
And for those who are on the journey, I mean, we have people that may walk in for the very first time, walking into a church setting. We're discovering recovery, and oftentimes you'll see 12-step groups. They're in different spaces, churches, our program here being hosted at Austin Cornerstone. Tell us about maybe what message you would have for the person that says, I'm not religious.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure about this, and this recovery space thing, I don't know what to do in that space.
Well, religious or not, we can all be sober and should be. And I would just rephrase it. For me, and I know we have a song later, I would say we're all works in process. And for me, I would phrase it, that's God ain't through. Someone who's non-Christian could just as easily say, I can change, and it does not have to be a Christian-themed message. It applies to everybody.
If you could go back, you talked about your first date with alcohol, and then getting married, and then divorcing many, many decades later from it. If you can go back to that first date and do it all over again, what would you do differently that night?
I wouldn't ask her out. I've heard it said, it's an adage that some people can have 4 or 5 drinks and it's not problematic, and others can have 1 and it's a real challenge. And that's the case with me. I didn't know that then. Alcohol, which was my drug of choice, alcohol impacts people differently. Many people can drink socially without a problem. I'm not one of them. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, and that's a thing that we hear a lot from people. It's hard for some family members to understand this journey when they themselves, alcohol is not an issue, or never thought about taking drugs. So it's hard to kind of build that bridge and understand. Sure. What do you think would be helpful for someone who says, that's not my issue, I can't really connect with it, I don't understand that anxiety to want to use? What do you tell them that might help them understand why it's different?
Well, I'd maybe cite a story or an observation I made. One of my best friends from Dallas, we go every year to see the March Madness tournament in basketball. We go to Las Vegas. And he can't stop gambling. I can make a couple of bets, win or lose, both, split. Doesn't matter the outcome, and just move on to the next thing. I don't have a problem with that. He doesn't have a problem with alcohol. I do. And what it put in stark contrast is that we are exhibiting the same behaviors over different subject matters. And I would say to the person who doesn't understand, well, why isn't it easy for you just to put that bottle down? And I would say, well, think about, there's probably something in your life or your closet too, where you also struggle to interrupt the process that's not going well.
And the recovery process is also very different. I mean, we have people that go through 12-step programs. We have people that go into treatment. And we have people that say, I heard the voice of my 4-year-old.
Yes.
So why is the journey so different for different people?
Well, every addiction story is different, and every recovery story is different. Mine's a little unique in that you and I talked about this in the preamble. I lost the urge to drink, which is different than fighting through a continuing urge to drink. The cookies still attract me, the ice cream still attracts me, but I can walk right by the beer or the alcohol without a problem. I think of it as, in my view, it's providential. But the real thing, this all comes back to my daughter too. I remember very clearly thinking at a particular moment that if I continued my drinking, that soon she'd be old enough, as your 8-year-old, if she was the age of your 8-year-old daughter, that she'd be embarrassed of my behavior, and that soon after that, she wouldn't have a father. And I didn't care much about what happened to me, but I cared an awful lot about what happened to her, and I couldn't tolerate that. And I wouldn't say it was ever even difficult to quit drinking, but I always had this mental image, if I ever had an inkling to have a beverage, I would picture a figurine of my daughter about the height of this plastic water bottle on my shoulder, hollering in my ear, Dad, what the hell are you doing? Or something like that. But that's what worked for me, and it's a different story for everybody.
And CL, you talked also about during this time period when you reached sobriety that you were hitting this, you said, spin cycle.
Yes, sir.
And your mother had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
2 friends tragically passed away from suicide, and the impact that had, losing a job, being in the middle of a divorce. These are the kind of things that most people would cite as the beginning of going downhill and going into addiction. And in that space, you found your way out. Walk us through how that journey was for you.
Well, I would say 2 things. One, I saw my friend Robert, who had somewhat similar circumstances, and while I had never been suicidal, neither had Robert, to my knowledge, and he shot himself. Also, I knew that I didn't have any room to increase my alcohol consumption. I was already on blast, and if I did like many do in that scenario, which is ramp the intake, this was going to end poorly and end quickly. And so it was a real binary options. And it wasn't to moderate my consumption. I was either headed to oblivion or I was coming out. And that 4-year-old had a lot to do with that.
And CL, that's a good reminder for us that in these moments, whether we're talking about alcoholism, substance abuse, or even suicide, that there are many people that walk into this space with lots of different thoughts, lots of different pressures, and lots of things that they're battling with. And it's a good reminder for anyone watching here online, anyone here in person, there are lifelines, there are spaces to go. Thankfully, nowadays, 3 numbers, simple, 988 is a crisis number that you call wherever you're at, 24/7, hotline to connect you with emergency crisis mental health services. So whether for yourself or someone that you know who may be going through something, 988 is an incredible resource to be able to connect with someone immediately. And so CL, with that, those moments of crisis that people struggle with, you, I'm sure, no doubt, have been in a position now with your life experience to be able to pour into others. So what has that journey been like for you as you're mentoring others or people come across you and say, I'm struggling with this, I don't know where to go?
Say the thing that I encounter most is a bit of a defeatist attitude. It has to start with change is possible. And at least for me, what I would, as you heard many times, for me, my daughter was a catalyst. Everybody loves somebody. There's somebody in your life, and if you can think outside yourself, whether it's grandma, parents, or a spouse, or kids, whomever that may be, and about the potential to build and or repair relationships that are important. That's a galvanizing objective. The downside is, though, well, I would just say with anything, any progress must first start with an admission that there's a problem and an objective and a game plan, whether that's school or athletics or sobriety. And at least the people I've talked to, sometimes it takes I drank for 25 years. It takes a consistent messages. There's a better life for you, and there's a better life for you and your loved ones. You can change. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You can still change, and you'll love that you did.
There's a lot of people out there that think I've been on this run for so long that it is hard to change. It's hard to, like you were saying, rebuild.
Hard to change is different than can't change.
Hard to change is different than can't change. And for those who are looking to rebuild relationships that may have broken, maybe it's with a parent or a relationship with a child, depending on how long they've been on this journey and how much strain is there, what advice do you give to that person that says, I need to rebuild and I don't know what that's going to look like with this person who may have gone through all this pain?
Well, almost every addict, or maybe every addict, intentionally or unintentionally inflicts pain on those within the circle. But if these are loving, or at least were loving relationships, continued openness and empathy on both sides will set the groundwork for repair. And I think if I put myself on the other side of this, as a family member to someone like that, what the family member really wants to see is not 10 years worth of monthly sobriety tests. What the family member wants to see is effort, intentionality, and authenticity. And when those are present, it's easy to open the arms for a hug.
What about family members who may say, I'm accepting you are on this path of recovery, but they're still scared. They're scared that things may flip, that we're going to be right back to where we're at. And then the person in recovery feels like, well, you don't trust me, or you're always anticipating this. How did you manage that in your life when people around you maybe weren't all 100% convinced that this was it?
I do remember mentioning to my ex-wife once that I had quit alcohol, and she asked how long it had been since I had a drink, and I said 3 or 4 weeks, and I remember her precise response: bullshit. But that's not an undeserved response after a quarter century of excess consumption. So I think it requires understanding in both directions. You need to love the addict, and it is accurate to say that even with your love, and even with a newfound attempt at sobriety, there are no guarantees. It's a better bet, but there are no guarantees that recovery will occur. And from the addict standpoint, who may sense slight maybe equivocation from a family member on the subject, part of that's reasonable and to be expected after a lengthy pattern. But if you're talking about true loving relationships, both sides expressing themselves well with intent to each other usually can melt most of those, if done consistently, can melt most of those barriers in both directions.
And Seal, with your experience here in recovery, and how many years of sobriety now?
17.
17 years of sobriety, and in all the creative spaces that you've poured your talents in, if there were resources out there, if there was, let's say, 3 things, people or resources that you would say, this is my go-to. If someone asked me, where do I go to get help? Or what do I do in order to change things? What are maybe 3 resources that are at the top of your mind?
From a addict or a family member's
Well,
perspective?
we'll start with the addict first and then come back to family.
I would start with God loves you. And if that doesn't work, you've got family and friends that love you, that are longing for the return to the old you that isn't an active substance abuser, and you can tap into those. And from a family member's perspective, it's the acknowledgement, the recognition that your continued love of the addict through a crazy journey is not guaranteed to result in success. If you turn your back, that's almost guaranteed to result in failure. Yeah, there are many different paths. The one that I leaned hardest on was I had a girl I cared about very much, and most people, even in the direst of circumstances that I've met, have at least a handful of people that they care about, and that's the prong to sort of open a crevice to begin to establish a new rapport.
Well, there's a lot here to unpack, and you have done an amazing job of just opening up and being so transparent. I got to ask
It's
you.
in all the songs anyway. I can't run from them.
Well, that's what I was going to say, too. It's just
it's in the public domain.
one of the things that we struggle with nowadays is just talking about these things. And I don't know if during your journey when you were in that dating stage, if these were conversations that people were having about addiction, about recovery, about dangers, about family, about the look a parent would have when they're having to bury a child. What's missing here today that we should be doing more of as a community?
Well, I don't know if my situation is representative, but there were several people along the way who suggested or demanded that I quit drinking, and I didn't listen to any of them. The irony is they had no idea what my actual consumption was. They saw only a part. But I would just say that both sides in this journey have to walk hand in hand. And I don't know how it gets done otherwise.
We talk a lot in this program about building community.
Yes.
About giving space, about connecting. And we have family members that are wanting to connect with other family members to say, you are not alone in this. And that is a story that resonates with me. And so as we build these kind of communities and we have people like you share their stories, we're hearing more and more from people online, people here in person that are saying, I haven't been in a space like this, where I'm not put on the spot to share my story, but I'm hearing other people's stories and I'm connecting. So what advice do you have for programs like us that are trying to build into the community? What should we do more of?
Well, I'll just give you an anecdote. I have spoken many times about business and music on interviews and podcasts and the like, and that's not a problem. But sort of unveiling yourself in this manner, even for a smaller audience, it is a bit unnerving because it cuts to the very core, not just describing a particular function of your life. But I think the Cornerstone program has done a great job. I think it just needs time to blossom and more great speakers, not like the one tonight. There's an audience member here today, and I'm not going to say his name, but if he were a grocery store, it'd be Thumb. That should be a speaker, but it's a great plan, and Austin needs it. Every city needs it.
Well, CL, you point to something really important, is that within a crowd, within an audience, both online and here in person, there are individuals who have their stories. Everyone has their story. And not everyone gets a chance to be able to share that or feels that they're comfortable, prepared, or even successful yet to share their story. So to that
Yes.
person that says, oh, I haven't had enough success yet to talk about my life.
It is different having had a problem for 25 years and being 17 years on the other side. It's a little easier to take a victory lap and spike the football. I would not have been nearly as comfortable 1 year or 2 years in, and certainly pre-sobriety. I would have pretended I didn't have a problem.
It's tough in the early stages of it, and there's reassurance in the community that's being built around the stories that you're hearing from different people.
Many people, you know this best. I didn't have this, but many people need or benefit from having mentors and guides along the way. People where peers, maybe addict peers, to whom they can become accountable, where they can have mutual accountability. That's worked in many occasions. Or mentors for folks who have that lived experience and have changed. When the Titanic hits the iceberg, grab each and every life preserver possible.
That reminds us the next stage of what we're doing in this program moves from the expert speakers to small groups, a space where people with lived experience are learning together and sharing stories together. And in that space, being able to see each other's faces, to be able to connect with one another, and also learn on this journey together. It's done with evidence-based practices and the idea of it being a space where we learn the education about addiction, that we also give each other space for grace, where we understand that it's not perfect and that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to it, but to provide family members with tools and a space to connect with others. And so much of what you shared here really pours in to people's lives and connects with them on that level. Your music, I keep coming back to that because this is something that I've not had a chance.
Oh, please, let's not talk about music.
We don't have to talk, we'll just have you sing. So we got the microphone set up. But tell us, in terms of, because actually, a nice surprise here, we're gonna actually have your music video that is playing here with a very specific song.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about that song and what that means to you and what came about, like how it came across.
Sure. Well, it's written about my recovery. It's called God Ain't Through, and you'll see the primary actor in this particular case going to AA, having a disconnected family, and then and finds grace and sobriety. In the end, it is 100% autobiographical, and that's my life in music and video form. And most times, even though I wrote it and I've seen it and heard it 100 times maybe, most times it brings a tear to my eye out of gratefulness, because I realize how close I came to not being here. And if I were being brutally honest, those series of events, my spin cycle, that hit me every 3 years instead of all in 6 months, I would have just taken the shoulder bump, gone right on about my destructive way. And the message is really simple. You can change. God ain't through. It's true. You have to embrace it.
I think this is one of the things that drew us so much to you to come here and share this time and share this space is the message of hope that you have, and that it's an ongoing process, that it continues. And that message of hope extends not just for the person in recovery, but also for the family member who's wondering,
Absolutely.
is there hope for my loved one? So this music video is incredibly powerful. We're going to play this here live here. We're also going to add a link for those online. Please feel free to share this. This is a message and a story that's very beautiful, well told, well produced, and something that I think connects with a lot of people who have walked through this journey. And before we play that, we do want to give a little bit of space for the Q&A section. So for any questions, and this is probably the hardest, most nerve-wracking part, for any speakers, like we don't know what questions are going to come out from the crowd, but we want to take at least 1 or 2 questions from anyone out there. And we'll have a microphone going around here. So, and if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. Great expert here, ready to answer questions.
Test 1 2 1 2.
So when you talked about grace and participation on both sides with the addict and the family and open arms, what if as a family member, you're not in a space to be loving? Is it better just to put a boundary until you can?
I think the question is, if you're just so despondent over a bad history with an addict that it, well, if the interaction is going to be negative and dictatorial, that's harmful. And so my advice would be try to get to an equilibrium where your message can be delivered in a loving way. And if that means you need to take a time out and let someone else tag team.
And if I could add to that too, something that we've been hearing from also previous speakers too about how it can be really traumatic and the feelings that come up that generate. Sometimes we do shut down when we're back into that pain cycle with a family member, and how important it is to listen to our body when it tells us that something's going on and this isn't the right moment. That's just a moment to breathe, to take back. And I think that's a story for a lot of family members, a lot of people out there, that it is absolutely okay to take that time, take that space, and to have that personal work to work through that trauma. Do you feel like in your experience that when the family members do their work independently and the person in addiction is doing their work, that they come back as different people? What does that look like when each side is doing their own work?
I hadn't thought of it that way, but since we're works in process, we're always changing and evolving. But at least the mental imagery that I always had was one of returning to the loving relationship that pre-existed the addiction. And I guess both things can be true.
We have time for another question.
Hey, CL, thanks for your comments. So you mentioned your parents and kind of the unresolved relationship there, I think. So looking back, and I don't know when the drinking started exactly. I was trying to put the math.
17.
17, okay. So I was thinking about this from the perspective of parents, and if you could go back and give advice to your parents based on looking in the rearview mirror today about how maybe they could have done it differently, and, what would you tell them?
That's a great question. My dad passed when I was 22 or 23, and I can remember my behavior was so poor that he said, when I was an undergrad, he said I ought to go back to Lubbock because it wasn't going to work in the house. And I thought that was harsh, and turned the car around, and 300 miles later, probably 6 back later, back in Lubbock. The truth is, though, at least this is just my view. I don't speak for this from an educational background or a study background. I wish I'd been given harsher medicine sooner. And My dad would not have tolerated it, but he died, as I said, in between under and grad school. And my mom just didn't have the countenance. It wasn't in her mindset. But I look back, I remember a specific incident. I can remember one time being on a date and getting pulled over by a policeman. And my date accurately said, "Well, officer, please let us go because we're only a mile from my home, and I'll drive." And I can remember my heart racing because I didn't want a DWI. And he let her do that. What she didn't tell him was, well, about 15 minutes after we got there, I got the car and drove back to my house for 25 minutes, which was a bad. I wish I had been stopped and shaken. It was fortunate I didn't hurt others or hurt myself along my path. So that would be my answer, that stern warnings and outcomes early, maybe it's just my experience, Russ, but until really challenged and demoralized, change won't occur. Or at least that was my relationship with addiction. And sweeping under the rug is not a strategy.
So that's great. So, and kind of as a follow-up to that, kind of thinking forward, you know, what kinds of preventative things do you think about now for your own family or your own daughter who is so important to your own recovery, you know, through her journey through the same age? You know, what is there anything that you would share with others, not specifically about her, but how you think about it as a parent today with that perspective?
Well, it's interesting that the substances of choice have changed. What I got, she's a college student, and what I gather in her friend base, there's not heavy drinking. Certainly, it's not prominent in her group like it was when I was in college. But marijuana, which absent the Caribbean ganja, was verboten when I grew up. It's not treated particularly seriously today. But the answer is that I try to tell her all the time, not that you're perfect, you are enough. You are absolutely enough with strengths and flaws like everybody else who's listening or in the room. You don't need to inflate yourself with substances, and love her and have her understand that I love her and she is enough. We all are.
Seal, I think that I have a question. I think that truth sets you free, and that harsh truth you wish someone had shaken you with. A lot of people, when they're coming out of addiction or struggling with it, there's an element of shame that they don't want to talk about it. What would you speak into as how they could not allow shame to shackle them, and so that they're able to openly talk about it, because you really can become free in that?
Well, I'll share with you, I alluded to it earlier, I'm generally an open book and unbothered by public speaking, but I felt a little qualm in my stomach because of the subject matter, especially not in a private forum with those I'm close to. It's interesting now, I'm married and I remarried, greatest lady on the earth, and my daughter, they both love me. And this is so pivotal in my life, and neither of them know me as drinking anything. But to your question about how to avoid the shame, what I think about is, I described it as the mayhem that I left after 25 years. I'm in arrears. And if I can help one iota, then I want to do that. I can't, as I said, can't change your past, can't change your ways, no way to live in a permanent haze. I can't fix the problems that I caused. Can't unwind the parental relationships, But what I can do is be a sounding board or a mentor, and there's great, and if I can, someone else, their addiction recovery can, if the road can be truncated, or maybe they don't get that far with addiction, and if I can have one iota of input on that, the way I think of it, it's not shame. I've got a platform now. Music helps. I've got a platform to where I can help other people and take a smidgen, reduce the ledger a little bit from the damage that I left over 25 years. That's how I frame it in my mind. You can help.
CL, for those who want to follow and be able to be on that platform, hear the music, be inspired, be able to make that connection, share that, where can we go? Where can we go to hear more?
Well, I think we're on all the streaming platforms and maybe a dozen and a half videos. I think 6 of them very discreetly reflect sobriety journey. We're going to hear God Ain't Through. Shockingly, Devil's Brew is another one, and Let the Love Shine Through. These are all, they're all similarly themed. I would say probably 25% of the songs deal with that particular subject. It's actually the only thing that makes my life somewhat unusual is just the big pivot point up until about 45 and then post 45 sobriety break.
Well, we are privileged that you are sharing that with us, that you're giving us access to be able to share that with others as well. So for those who are here in person, we're actually going to watch the music video. We're going to have that here, and that'll be our way of being able to build our community and close up here. And for those online, we're also going to stream it, but also add a link. So feel free to share. We encourage you to. Again, music is such a powerful tool that connects people. And so to have these messages of hope is a great way of being able to connect with others. And a reminder, we are here. We're the CARES program, Caregivers and Relatives Empowered for Support with those with substance misuse. So if this is a space that you're looking for, or you're finding this space for a family member, a loved one, if you care for someone, come back and visit us. We're here on Mondays. We'll be starting groups very soon here as well to work with the community. But more importantly, just, again, share the message of hope. Know that we are here and that we have resources online that you can access. And if you need someone to talk to, we'll also be on our website, www.cares-texas or texas-cares.org, and you'll be able to find us there. So with that, thank you to all those who are attending, who are watching. And as we say every week, if this is your first time with us here, welcome home. Thank you all.
Shut forgiveness and clarity. If you seem like you can't find no one when you need someone to pick up your slack, I'll be the only one who won't waver no matter what. I got your back. This life be harder than the ever after biggie ups if you focus right. You find that bling and street cred don't matter. Love rule and might don't make right. No, love rule and might don't make right. Let's go. People get ready, there's a train coming. Don't need no baggage, you just get on board. People get ready, there's a train coming. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. The future nobody sees, what will be. Glad God ain't through with me. The future nobody sees, what will be. Glad God ain't through.